I possess a unique telepathic ability that allows me to hear the thoughts of those who do not hold love for me. However, on the night before my wedding, I unexpectedly picked up my fiance's thoughts. She was contemplating sabotaging our wedding the next day, which would make it hard for me to flee while wearing leather shoes. Choosing to remain silent, I boarded a flight to another country the following morning. Subsequently, that wedding turned into a farce, and both the bride and groom managed to escape unnoticed by the entire city. My mind-reading ability has always been a special trait of mine. It enables me to hear the true feelings of those who do not love me, allowing me to easily discern the authenticity of others' affections. This skill helps me to swiftly distance myself from insincere friends and to stay indifferent, even when a longtime crush confesses their feelings to me. Even when purchasing durians, I can select the one with the most flesh and sweetest flavor by tuning into the vendor's inner thoughts, as I can clearly hear every word they think. To minimize the constant influx of thoughts, I also avoid making eye contact with strangers in my daily interactions. However, when I first met Daniel, the entire world seemed to quiet down, leaving only our clear conversation audible. "Hello, is it convenient for us to get to know each other?" There were no underlying thoughts to decipher. As our eyes met, I couldn't read Daniel's mind. "Hello?" he greeted. During the period when Daniel was courting me, the only voice I heard was pure and straightforward. I believed he truly loved me, so we fell in love, dated, and discussed marriage. For 2 entire years, I never once read his inner thoughts. But just before our wedding, I suddenly heard Daniel's voice. Due to the wedding preparations, Daniel had been extremely busy lately. Coming from a prominent family, he had successfully taken over his father's role and was independently managing the family's financial enterprise. The wedding schedule required us to handle numerous tasks in advance, especially over the past 2 months. Being an independent woman who respects Daniel's career, our meetings during this period were exceedingly rare. Yet, on the day we finalized our wedding outfits, I couldn't help but feel a sense of sweetness, thinking it was a rare opportunity for us to spend time together. When I arrived at the studio punctually, Daniel was already there, having arrived early to try on shoes. He turned to the side to communicate something with the staff, then left while speaking on the phone, his words filled with reassurance. I understood how busy he was. Running a company is no small feat, especially with multiple heirs in the Du family. We exchanged a silent glance, but suddenly Daniel's voice echoed in my ears, saying, "Olivia mentioned that we're going to disrupt the wedding tomorrow, so it's better to wear sneakers." Olivia? Disrupt the wedding? I was stunned, staring intently at his lips. After confirming it was indeed his inner voice, I was momentarily unsure how to respond. Confirming his thoughts left me unsure of how to react. Despite the summer heat, a chill quickly spread through my body, compelling me to move. Hearing his thoughts clearly indicated his intentions. I caught sight of a staff member nearby placing a pair of light sneakers into the wedding attire as per his instructions. Daniel nodded toward me and lifted his leg to step outside, indicating our mutual understanding. He must have something important to attend to. However, the words in my ear were genuine, and I never mishear them. My body instinctively followed him. In disbelief, I hurried forward and called out, "Daniel?" I couldn't wait to delve deeper into his thoughts to comprehend what my fiancé was thinking. Why would he change his mind so abruptly on the eve of our wedding? My call caused Daniel to hesitate as he was about to sink into the back seat, but it was just a brief pause. He turned around to hurriedly explain, then instructed the driver to accelerate and leave, saying, "Sorry, there's an emergency with a client. I need to rush." It was a lie. At that moment, he was clearly thinking, "I know Olivia is upset from our phone conversation. If I don't soothe her, she won't let me go home tonight." I've never been the type to complain or dwell on myself. Instead of overthinking, it's better to take proactive steps. I devised a plan and discreetly asked Daniel's secretary to gather more information using my mind-reading ability. Her name is Olivia, and she was Daniel's first love. Olivia is the illegitimate daughter of the Yu family. Mrs. Yu never acknowledged her, leaving Olivia in a perpetually awkward position. Unfortunately, the elders of the Du family disapproved of their relationship. Olivia had a strong sense of self-worth. After enduring humiliation, she abandoned Daniel and disappeared without a trace. Daniel fell for me at first sight, partly because Olivia and I shared similar eyebrows. Now that his first love had resurfaced, he no longer saw the need for me as a replacement. Olivia returned precisely when Daniel had been extremely busy over the past 2 months. The reasoning was flawless and seamless. Hearing this story made me shake my head and laugh. I hadn't expected such a cliched romantic subplot to apply to my life. Olivia intended to hijack the wedding to assert her claim over Daniel, and simultaneously, she aimed to take revenge on the title of Daniel's wife that I had held for so long. Moreover, Daniel needed this opportunity to demonstrate his unwavering love for Olivia, appease his irate little wife, and compel the Du family to accept Olivia. Meanwhile, my meticulously planned wedding was merely part of their scheme. Honestly, I was so furious that I couldn't help but curse. That night, the lights in my house remained on. Although the wedding was scheduled for the next day, I was preoccupied with packing and had no time to spare. 2 hours earlier, I had booked a first-class flight abroad. They were acting irrationally, so I decided to go crazy too. With Daniel being susceptible to Olivia's interference, I could naturally disappear from the world and evade the wedding. Fortunately, my family had long been settled overseas, and this wedding wasn't elaborate enough to require inviting relatives and friends from there. I had only invited friends who typically maintained good relationships in China. Initially, I thought the parents of both families had met during our engagement, and we would hold another wedding abroad to accommodate relatives and friends facing language barriers. This plan now made it easier for me to escape the marriage. I briefly shared my plan with my best friend Lily. She silently took the packing box from my hands, her face stern. Unable to read her mind and noticing her lack of a positive reaction, I had to ask, "Lily, are you going to stop me?" Lily rolled her eyes and unhappily replied, "Mississippi, I brought you a sack of urea. It's durable for storing things." Oh my God, I had forgotten that Lily's family was involved in the pesticide business. On the wedding day, Daniel and I, dressed in our wedding gowns, greeted guests from afar. This time, Daniel's voice was so loud it gave me a headache. "Is Olivia here? I can finally be with Olivia." I had been waiting for Olivia for 3 years. She was finally going to become my wife. This time, Olivia would believe in my unwavering heart. I couldn't help but frown and cast several icy glances at Daniel. However, he didn't show any signs of displeasure and continued to care for me with his usual gentle and elegant demeanor. "Emma, you don't look well. Why don't you go rest in the lounge first? I'll greet the guests outside and you can join the wedding," he suggested. Okay. In truth, it was almost time for me to find an excuse to escape. Just as I was about to change my dress into casual clothes, I encountered Olivia at the door. Thanks to our similar appearances and my mind-reading ability, I recognized her almost immediately. I restrained Lily, who was wearing her bridesmaid dress and ready to confront me, pretending to be oblivious. "Are you Daniel's friend? Come in quickly, our wedding starts in a few hours." Olivia's smile abruptly halted, seeming dissatisfied with how casually I referred to Daniel, and her words turned sarcastic. "Miss Emma, I'm sorry, we're wearing the same dress today. If someone who doesn't know us sees this, would they think I'm the bride?" Simultaneously, Olivia's arrogant inner voice echoed in my ears as she laughed. "In 3 hours, your groom will abandon me. Will you still be able to laugh then?" I maintained my smile, shook my head, and remained indifferent. I told the waiter to seat her. "Stupid, I've said so much. Can't you see I'm here to cause trouble?" Just as we passed each other, Lily couldn't help but complain about Olivia's arrogant demeanor. It was unbearable. I couldn't deny that Olivia was treating me like a joke. After all, Daniel was about to have his marriage stolen by her, allowing her to claim the title of lover, finally marrying and forcing the Du family to acknowledge her. The wedding venue was close to the airport. While I sat in the waiting room, the ceremony hadn't begun yet. I stared at the time on my phone, anticipating the impending chaos. Suddenly, my phone buzzed continuously. Lily had excitedly refreshed a live broadcast. "Emma, the wedding was indeed hijacked. They acted shamelessly, making it look like a scene from a folklore tale. The ceremony officially started just 5 minutes ago, and Lily sent me a video of the wedding proceedings. According to the footage, after Daniel appeared on the stage, the MC narrated a cheesy and sensational love story, and then the bride was supposed to come forward. At a critical moment, Olivia attempted to steal the wedding by deliberately wearing the same dress as the bride, swiftly stepping forward and grabbing the MC's microphone. Despite much chatter from the audience, she continued to proclaim her love. Her boldness and directness caused Daniel's eyes to redden. "Daniel, are you willing to go with me?" The guests erupted in chaos. Stealing the groom on his wedding day was nothing short of a blatant wedding robbery. The worst part was that Daniel nodded in agreement with a heartfelt expression, walked over to Olivia, and held her hand saying, "I do." Olivia's inflated ego was fully satisfied at that moment. She even seemed ready to deliver a speech to the bride across the room, stating, "I know you care about Daniel deeply, but Daniel loves me the most, and I hope you understand." In the video, Daniel was seen wearing a pair of sneakers that didn't match his suit and dress. Holding the microphone, Olivia couldn't help but appear proud. She likely couldn't wait to see me in a state of despair, and had even contemplated how to console me. "I hope Miss Emma can support Daniel and me in our love story." Miss Emma? The atmosphere suddenly became awkward. After all, if the person who was meant to be slapped wasn't present, the entire dramatic display would be a mere farce. "Miss Emma? Miss Emma?" Olivia shouted multiple times, but no one responded until the etiquette officer opened the door. There was no one behind it, only the white veil that had been discarded, symbolizing the bride's disappearance. The crowd immediately became noisy, with someone exclaiming, "Damn, is the bride running away from the marriage?" In the quiet waiting room, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Of course, I had to assist them. There were people I knew among the guests. If they wanted to cancel the wedding and ditch me, it would be my fault. It was better to let them watch the farce unfold for free. I couldn't stop shaking my head and laughing at the situation. At that moment, a text and picture suddenly appeared on the big screen in red fonts, stating, "Escape statement. Because Daniel cheated on his mistress Olivia, I have decided to flee the marriage. I will make this a joke for you. I hope you both remain united in the future and refrain from harming others." Below the message, a recent intimate photo of Daniel and Olivia was attached. My phone buzzed as Lily sent me a message. "Mission accomplished successfully." Upon seeing this message, I also sent the same statement on WeChat, which was the last post on that account's Moments. The attendees were immediately furious. Who has time to laugh at me now? The bigger joke was that they were still holding hands on stage. With the bride missing, no one cared whether Daniel and Olivia had escaped. Olivia had expressed her love on stage alone, which appeared particularly ridiculous with the bright red word cheating displayed on the big screen. What good words! It was merely a cover-up for her infidelity. Lily was so thrilled that she burst into laughter, but then she played another video showing me. In 2 minutes, no one paid attention to the two idiots on stage, and the crowd was frantically searching for me. "Where's Emma? Where's Miss Emma? Where's the bride? I can't reach her on the phone. Miss Emma? Where's the bride? I can't contact her on the phone. How can I find her? Have you checked the lounge? Look in the dressing room, the room on the top floor, everywhere. What are you all standing there for? Get moving, get moving." Even Daniel's parents, who had been looking somber, eagerly stood up and instructed the staff to find me. The guests also took action. No one cared about the two people on stage. Even the MC was asked to leave. Daniel and Olivia stood awkwardly on the stage, staring at each other like monkeys being paraded in public, utterly lost. The funniest part was that the audience was busy searching for me, the missing bride, while ignoring Daniel and Olivia. The romantic and thrilling escape scene imagined by Olivia and Daniel turned chaotic, resembling elderly people scrambling for free eggs at a supermarket entrance, thanks to my sudden disappearance. They stood on the stage, and whether I chose to escape or not was irrelevant. If I fled, no one would care. If I didn't, it still wouldn't matter. As the time approached, I sent a message to Lily on WeChat to prepare for boarding, and then briefly informed my parents via message, requesting that they keep my personal information private. I activated airplane mode on my phone, settled into the first-class cabin, and enjoyed the more than 10-hour flight. As soon as I landed, Lily's frantic message appeared. The aftermath of this incident is very interesting. Even when I replied to the first sentence, Lily couldn't help but call me directly, "Ha ha ha, Emma, you're too cruel. You don't know, Hong Kong City is in chaos now. Those who attended are relatives and friends of the Du family, many of whom are prominent figures. When you escaped the marriage, they were thrown into turmoil. Those two idiots stood on the stage for 10 minutes, and no one cared about them. In the end, they walked down by themselves. I found it funny. Look at the trending topics now. The video has shot to the top. Netizens are saying that these two are crazy husband and wife. Just now, the bastard chased me to your villa. When he saw you weren't there, he got so angry that he jumped at the door, pressing your doorbell repeatedly like sending a telegram. Beep, beep, beep. I was about to flee when he caught up with me. This cheap man had the nerve to ask me where I went. I said I had gone abroad and knew nothing else. It was so funny. He ran really fast in sneakers, Lily continued, her breathless laughter revealing how much trouble Daniel had faced this time. He didn't get the marriage and lost all face. I wasn't surprised by Daniel's reaction. He dared to do this because he knew I wouldn't make a big deal out of it for the sake of the Du and Wei families. In the end, I silently endured the marriage theft. After all, the Wei family's assets were all abroad, and the Du family wouldn't be significantly affected. I could also use this opportunity to force Daniel's parents to accept Olivia as their daughter-in-law. Things had come to this point. If they didn't acknowledge it, it would be embarrassing in front of so many guests. However, Daniel hadn't anticipated that I would run away from the marriage. I tore off that cover-up and shoved it into his and Olivia's mouths to make them disgusted. Let them be. Love is about enjoyment, but when it comes to marriage, it's merely about endurance. Cinderella and the prince's days aren't just about the wedding day. What they face daily is the exhausting routine. When you're at a dead end, you should turn around in time. I had escaped an unhappy marriage, so I wanted to set off firecrackers to celebrate. My parents had settled abroad years ago, embracing an open atmosphere for marriage and love, valuing freedom and casualness. Moreover, Daniel and I hadn't taken the time to obtain a marriage certificate. From a legal standpoint, we weren't even husband and wife. When I requested to return, my parents agreed swiftly. As soon as I disembarked from the plane, my parents had arranged for someone to pick me up. Upon getting into the car, Lily was still excitedly updating me about the aftermath, explaining that the wedding had been canceled. Later, the guests departed one by one, leaving only a few staff members. Our families maintained a good relationship with the Du family, so we stayed to console Danielle's mother, who was so angry she could barely stand. Daniel's mother was furious and slapped Daniel across the face. Honestly, he deserved it. Everyone knew how much I had helped him rise to the top. Olivia was an illegitimate daughter. It was humiliating for the Du family to have their marriage publicly ruined. Daniel's father didn't even look at him and simply left. Only Olivia remained, crying beside him. As I left, I saw Olivia crying and pestering Daniel, saying, "I'm not going to hold a wedding. I think I've lost face this time." I sneered and replied, "People who insult others will always be insulted. I'm waiting for their wedding. If they truly get married, I will definitely bless them sincerely. The danger of first love is that even if she appears in person, it won't work. I think Daniel will soon understand this truth." Daniel and I met at a charity dinner. Although the Wei family's assets had been transferred abroad, my parents and I were both from Hong Kong. My parents are elderly, and their bodies can't withstand long international flights. I returned then for a business trip and to reconnect with my roots, but I didn't expect to meet the man I thought I was destined to be with. At that time, Daniel called me over, holding a glass of red wine. He had a gentle smile and a composed demeanor. Due to my mind-reading ability, I rarely initiated conversations in such public places unless necessary. The bar was too noisy. When Daniel called me, the impatience on my face didn't even fade. Strangely, I didn't hear any of his inner thoughts. Perhaps because it was too quiet, I gradually became patient enough to talk to him. Later, when he confessed his feelings, he was so shy that he didn't know where to place his hands or feet. His hand holding the rose trembled slightly. "Emma, I will treat you well for the rest of my life." We looked at each other, but I couldn't read his heart. So I nodded. I trusted Daniel's promise and was willing to stay in the country to marry him. I never doubted his promise at that moment, but promises only hold weight when accompanied by love. In my eyes, Olivia and Daniel's love story was actually a tale of unrequited love in their youth. Olivia might not have been as beautiful as Daniel imagined, and Daniel might not have loved Olivia as deeply as he thought. True love is most moving when it's unreciprocated. Half a month later, after finishing Professor Parsons' design class, I received a call from Lily. Didn't I receive the wedding invitation from that bastard a few days ago? When I went there today, I thought it was a banquet held in some village. It wasn't as lively as the last time I went to the north to enjoy pig-killing dishes. Lily is obviously a reporter working on the gossip front lines. She described the sensational wedding in a rambling manner. Daniel's father didn't attend at all. Many people didn't come to this wedding either. It wasn't like your original one. The ceremony was held in the secondary hall. Only Daniel's mother showed up with a gloomy expression. She drank tea coldly. Don't even mention handing out red envelopes. She still calls her Miss Rena. When speaking on stage, she still reprimanded Miss Olivia to be obedient and adhere to proper etiquette. Ha ha ha, it's really unpleasant to hear the older generation scolding people with manners. Olivia was so angry that she dropped her bouquet into the audience. Daniel had to soothe both his mother and Olivia simultaneously. I almost died of laughter. According to Daniel's mother's personality, it was typical for her not to hold such a wedding. However, she couldn't resist Olivia whispering into her son's ear, so she had to suppress her anger and attend. But Olivia had already offended her mother-in-law before the marriage. Can she have a good life in the future? I wondered. I also heard that Olivia had been placing people within Daniel's company recently. She felt comfortable there. Once she married, the Yu family would acknowledge her identity, and her own business had already taken off. It was beneficial to lean on a powerful family for support. Now, I thought about how hard I had worked to secure resources for Daniel, but now Olivia had reaped all the benefits. I hated it so much. I continued flipping through project information while chatting with Lily on speakerphone. I'm not losing money either. I've made a lot of money among them. But Daniel's life isn't easy. He does have the authority to operate, but the specific decision-making power still lies with his father. It's impossible for the Du group to name you in the end. Besides, there are multiple young men in the Du family. It's really hard to say, but I understand Daniel's ambition. The company isn't his one-man show. I guess Olivia should act first and request permission later to place people in. Thanks to the wedding, my domestic partners also became aware of the feud between Daniel and me, and they revealed some information to me. For example, the Du family directly promoted Daniel's cousin, and the pressure was very evident. Bragging love and career must be very challenging for Daniel. Lily was clearly dissatisfied with my response. What do you mean, Mercy? You still feel sorry for his life, so are you going to offer him warmth next? I raised my eyebrows, responding, It's definitely impossible. I'm wondering if I can take this opportunity to profit. Great, Lily thought. I thought you were in love, but I didn't expect you to be a capitalist. However, I didn't anticipate receiving a call from Daniel 2 months later. Emma. After such a long time, hearing his voice made me shudder. Daniel? No wonder the professor refused to disclose the client's name. He always mentioned it was an old acquaintance. It turned out to be you. My attitude towards Daniel reaching out was somewhat indifferent. I went abroad, not to attend a funeral. The domestic and international circles are so small now, and there are no barriers to business. Daniel just needs to spend more time to find me. Emma, His hesitant tone annoyed me, and I silently rolled my eyes inwardly. What do you mean? I have no old feelings to discuss with an ex-boyfriend who cheated on me. I'm kind enough not to wish him a happy life. I greeted him because he is a client. I interrupted Daniel coldly. If there are no issues, I'll introduce this project to Mr. Daniel. Daniel was clearly still lost in his own emotions, reminiscing about the past. Emma, I'm sorry for what happened back then. I know I hurt you a lot, which is why you fled from the marriage and went abroad in anger. I'm sorry, I owe you an apology. I remained silent for a moment, sighing. Mr. Daniel, have you achieved what you wanted now? The other end of the phone fell into a long silence, and Daniel's voice suddenly sounded weary. I don't know. Olivia is very different from before. I almost doubt if she is the Olivia I once loved. Sorry, I know I shouldn't disrupt your current life, but I just suddenly wanted to talk to you for a while. I attended a cocktail party today and suddenly thought of the days when we fought side by side in the past. I sneered and had no intention of continuing this relatively mild call. Olivia, if you know that you and I are in contact now, it's inappropriate. Assistant, come here. It's difficult for you to talk to Mr. Daniel. Let me introduce this project. I have other things to attend to. Excuse me. No matter how thrilling first love is, it will become mundane after a long time. The mosquito blood that was once considered tasteless will suddenly become a cinnabar mole once it's no longer obtained. No matter how deeply someone is loved, they will miss the love that wasn't reciprocated. Regarding Daniel's confession, I could only think silently. He deserves it. I left the project follow-up to my assistant. Occasionally, I would provide guidance if I was unsure about something, but I tried to avoid direct contact with Daniel. I knew exactly what Daniel was thinking. But since he betrayed me the first time, I would never give him a second chance. My assistant went to China on my behalf and successfully secured the project. He also brought back another piece of news. Mr. Daniel asked me to inform you that he is divorced. When Olivia infiltrated the company, I already had a vague idea in my mind. I just didn't expect it to happen so quickly. Even when I messaged Lily, she was somewhat surprised. I just found out too. How come you're so well informed? I curled my lips. He contacted me again because of a project some time ago and specifically asked my assistant to inform me about it. Lily clicked her tongue twice and took over the conversation. Everyone knows Sima Zhao's intentions, but why is this guy still haunting you? What do you think you are? A spare tire? So disgusting. But do you know why they divorced? Olivia manipulated Daniel. She married abroad to a foreign tycoon and came to China because she didn't receive any money from the lawsuit with her stepson. When Daniel's mother found out, her hands shook with anger. Without saying a word, she slapped a photo on Daniel's face. Daniel's face turned so dark it could drip water. She had done many dirty things since getting married, and her relationship with Daniel had grown increasingly cold. Now that this matter is exposed, Daniel was sent someone to draft a divorce agreement the next day. Divorces are so straightforward now. I remember Daniel gave up all his property to be with her. Now they're getting divorced after just 1 year of marriage. Thinking about his expression at the time, I guess he feels foolish. I suddenly thought of what Daniel had told me back then. Olivia has changed. I found it amusing. Olivia might not have changed, but she simply didn't fit Daniel's expectations. The initial excitement faded, and true love slowly emerged. Apart from the project discussions, Daniel and I had no further contact, and I was selectively blind to his emails or friend requests. He was good at using imagination to fall in love with a perfect ideal. It used to be Olivia, and now it's probably me again. I thought, let him be. Now I have my own brand new life. As for Daniel, to me now, he's just an old story, not worth mentioning. It wasn't until Lily was preparing to get married that I returned to Hong Kong City after many years. My daughter, Grace, also returned with me. My husband is a foreign Chinese. When I came back to China, he was conducting scientific research in Antarctica. Otherwise, he would have accompanied me to the wedding this time. After chatting with Lily, Grace said she wanted to visit the children's playground in the nearby shopping mall. Thinking she had no playmates in China, I nodded and led her there. Grace was visibly excited and almost trotted all the way. I struggled to keep up with her in high heels. Before she knew it, Grace bumped into someone at the corner. I hurriedly chased after her to check on Grace and comforted her. I'm sorry. The child is innocent. I hope she didn't hurt you. Emma. The person sounded surprised and familiar, so I looked up. Daniel? To be honest, I didn't dare to confirm it was him until I looked closely. I suddenly realized that this mall seemed to be owned by the Du family, so it wasn't surprising that he was here. Whether it was his figure or demeanor, Daniel was very different from before. He looked much more haggard and decadent. From a distance, he resembled a 35-year-old who had been laid off in the middle of his career. He was vastly different from the energetic man I remembered. Daniel showed a hint of surprise on his face and curled his lips. Long time no see. This is my daughter, Grace. Our eyes met, but I couldn't read his inner thoughts this time. I heard you were married a long time ago, but I didn't expect your daughter to be so grown up. Grace spoke before me. Sorry, Uncle. I bumped into you. Daniel's expression was stunned for a moment, but he eventually reached out and touched Grace's head, leaned down, smiled, and spoke to Grace. It's okay, Grace. Remember not to run so fast next time. Manager Lee, take Grace to the children's playground over there to play. Emma, there's a new coffee shop on the second floor with your favorite Robusta. Is it convenient to catch up? I nodded and said a few words to Grace. In fact, before returning, I had already discussed Daniel's current situation in detail. The impact and fallout from Olivia's incident had been enormous for Daniel, and the Dew family had later decided to support his cousin for the position. As for Daniel, he could only be awkwardly treated coldly by the Dew family. The former favorite had now become a marginalized individual. Love is gone, career failed, and the gloomy atmosphere is so strong that it feels unbearably heavy, even though he's in the prime of his life. Hello, 1 cup of Robusta and 1 cup of Capra. Hello, 1 cup of Robusta and 1 cup of Capra. Thank you. No, please change Robusta to Vienna. Daniel asked me with a smile, change your taste. I remember you didn't like these sweet coffees before. I shook my head. My husband always said that Robusta has a lot of caffeine and that drinking too much harms the stomach, so he always changed it to Vienna. After drinking it for a long time, I also started to like sweet coffee. It's good. I saw your wedding scene. It was very romantic. Is it the famous castle in Switzerland? I happened to be on a business trip at that time, so I went to see it by chance. The Dew family has no business in Switzerland. But I didn't reveal this and smiled, agreeing, and greeted each other like ordinary friends. Would you mind approving my friend request? I thought. I put down my coffee cup and gave Daniel a faint smile. No, I know what you mean. You don't have to take it too seriously. For me, that was a thing of the past. Besides, it was obviously you who lost face. I did love you, but I don't love you anymore. I have a happy family, a husband who loves me, and a lovely daughter. I am living a brand new life. I'm not willing to reconnect with someone from the past. Daniel, if you miss it, you miss it. Love or hate, it doesn't matter. My overly calm expression hurt him, and Daniel's eyes slightly reddened. When I returned to find Grace, Manager Lee was holding a fairy tale book and reading it attentively. Only when I approached did Grace look up and ask me, Mom, have you read Asterisk, The Little Prince Asterisk? The fox is so good. Why did Asterisk, the Little Prince Asterisk, choose the rose in the end? Because she is the unique rose that he carefully nurtured. Grace's eyes were blank, and I smiled and took her hand. When Grace grows up a little more, she will understand what Mom says. Daniel, who had been very quiet all along, gave Grace a brand new copy of Asterisk, The Little Prince Asterisk, as we left the mall. Daniel and I nodded goodbye through the car window. As our eyes met, I still couldn't read his heart, as if we had returned to the first time we met. The car slowly drove away from the original location, leaving the figure of my old friend behind. I embraced my daughter's soft body. This was the final revenge I had for him, a gentle and dignified exit. From now on, memories would be the only way for us to cross paths. I would replace Olivia and become the lover Daniel had been searching for in his life. In Daniel's world, the lover he could never attain wasn't a fleeting storm, but a long-lasting dampness in his existence. He would be trapped in this gloom forever, with storms breaking out on every calm day. I used to be like the fox and the red rose, but now I am just a little prince who has completed his journey. My daughter held the phone and interrupted me. Mom, Dad wants to talk to you. The story ends.